stadium and stuff like that. And I have not yet been in the stadium, but some of the things that he brought up were really, cool observations that someone that doesn't get to see the stadium all the time don't really notice. What were your kind of thoughts? And you could probably expand on what he said as well, but what were kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it was new to Dylan, coming up this past week, but it's also pretty new for me. I mean, it hasn't been open for that long, less than a month really since I've seen it for the first time. And there are certain things about the arena that just kind of strike you as different from the beginning. And I guess the first most noticeable thing is the windows, whether it's, the windows that you can see, from the rink that just go to the outside and you get that natural lighting that's in there, or at the upper concourse. There's just kind of windows all the way around, and you can see in, you can see out, and it provides more of an open atmosphere, than at most arenas where it's all kind of walled off, the different sections, which I just love to see that. It, has kind of more of a community atmosphere, and everyone that I've seen that's been there has loved those windows, on the north side of the arena. And you've got, as it's affectionately called, tightwad terrace, the people able to look in for the games. I absolutely love that.
That's cool. I didn't even realize that was there. So I'm glad you brought that up. I did see, it's hard to tell when you're not around there. Like, I did notice the windows, but I wasn't sure how much, light and that they really provided into the rink that you would be able to see that.
Well, yeah.
No,
Well, the games at night, obviously there's not a whole lot, of difference there. It's just dark outside. But one of the things, like, I've been able to go to a lot of the morning skates, and with the blue sky shining through the few times, when it's sunny, it's just an amazing atmosphere. I really want to see like a Sunday matinee type game with that light coming in.
Yeah. That would be really cool. And the other thing too is the scoreboard. Like, the scoreboard's so different. I think it's a great idea though. It is so cool though.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to. It took me about a game and a half to kind of get used to it, because one thing you have to keep in mind is the best view of what's on there isn't always on the Jumbotron that's closest to you, because they have the different angles. They're almost like a, triangle screen type of shape. So yeah, you have to get used to where the best spots are to look, but there is always a great angle of whatever you're trying to see, no matter where you are, which I do like about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to get in there and see it, man. I'm really itching. I've been to a couple other stadiums, and they were nice, but I've been to one in Dallas, I've been to the one in Columbus, I've been in the pond, or whatever they call it now, in Anaheim. I'm trying to think of if I've been to any other ones, but I've been, but they were all just stadiums. There wasn't anything maybe the exterior looked a little different and stuff, but for the most part, a stadium is a stadium. I'm glad that they went, kind of off the board and a little bit unique on the stadium. I know it's kind of their long-term intention is to get a basketball team in there, but still, for hockey, it makes it cool and makes it a place, a destination for people to come see their team travel to go, for the Kraken. So it's very cool.
Certainly has a unique feel to it. And one more thing, when you walk in and you're instantly on the upper concourse level, everything's below you. It's amazing how deep it all goes in. I'm not used to that. Usually when you walk into an arena, you're kind of toward the ground level where the ice is. Not at all here. That's just a really cool adjustment.
Yeah, they dug it down into the earth, so you're a couple levels. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, they did a great job from what I can tell, and I'm very anxious. I was kind of hoping that maybe, because I think the Hawks are playing out there at the end of like February or something like that. I would like to have gotten out there for that. And then also I'm going to be out there with my family, like the end of last week of January, first week in February. But, the problem is that that's when the Olympic break starts. They're on a road trip, and then they go into that the All-Star / Olympic break. So they're not going to be there I can be there for a week, and they're not going to be there, which is crazy. But, oh well, whatever. So be it. So anyway, the Kraken. We're already 10 minutes in. We haven't really even talked about the team yet as far as the on-ice product. Well, I mean, last night they lost 4-2 to the Blackhawks. I kind of wrote this in my recap. They outplayed the Blackhawks in every statistical category other than goals. They all their and it's crazy because I'll go to Natural Stat Trick and after every game and I'll check out the fancier stats instead of to try to get a little better picture of the game and what's going on. And it there are so many of their games, and I've never seen this before like this. There's so many of their games that their possession statistics, they're stomping other teams. They're out shooting other teams badly. Their face-off percentage has been pretty good. Everything outside of the goal, outside of the net, has been really pretty good. They don't give up a lot of shots. I think they give up the sixth lowest amount of shots, fifth or sixth lowest amount of shots in the entire league, which is good. And I'm going to get more into those stats in a little bit, but it was crazy watching this that they had stomped the Blackhawks in every single the faceoffs. Corsi, which is in all shots, Fenwick, which is unblocked shots, and then you have expected goals, and I've got a bunch of them here: expected goals for, total shots, unblocked shots, high danger chances, like everything. They stomped the Blackhawks in, but they lose 4-2, and they were down 3-0. Going late into the game when they got a power play, they got a pretty lucky power play goal, and Hacksaw pulled the goalie with 5 or 3.5 minutes to go, which drives me crazy because I hate when they do it that early. It almost always equates to an empty net goal, but because the Blackhawks have a terrible defense, they weren't able to get it out of their own end until the final minutes of the game. But anyway, it was just crazy watching that game, watching them outplay the Blackhawks and then losing the game pretty convincingly until the last 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the story of the season for the Kraken. I mean, all these underlying numbers look good. Top 10 in the league and expected goals for percentage, giving up, some of the fewest shots in the league. You think that they're doing the right things, defensively, to not be allowing as many goals as they are. The problem is, they'll allow very few shots, but some of the ones that they do are just such high danger opportunities. And even then, they're not in the top 10 in the league in high danger opportunities allowed. But if you look at the high danger save percentage, if you're looking on Natural Stat Trick, I'm sure you can scroll over and see that one. But high danger save percentage, something like 738. It's the worst in the NHL
by a long shot.
By quite a bit.
Yeah, so, it's by 3 full percentage points. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just the key. They're not getting those saves on high danger chances. And it's tough because you don't want to be giving up those high danger chances either. You look at this last game and solid play for a while. And then, all of a sudden, The-Rink gets, a rush that's, gives him a pretty good opportunity. He takes advantage of it. Then you leave Patrick Kane just unguarded, wide open, and he takes advantage of it. So you can play solid defensively for much of the game, but all of a sudden you make one mistake and then it's in the back of your net. And that's just kind of been the story for them all season.
Yeah, it's funny because I came from a whole Chicago Blackhawks fandom that had been there for years and built up, and one of the first 6 NHL teams and all that stuff. And you got all these people that they know everything and all this stuff. And now coming into, and I'm finding these newer fans that are in Seattle, and I'm realizing that you got to be patient because they're new fans. A lot of people are new fans. Some people were already hockey fans, but I have to assume, at least from the get-go, that a lot of people, may not have been hockey fans altogether, because they didn't have someone locally to cheer for. So you're probably a hockey player if you were a fan of hockey in any manner. So, but I'm finding a lot of people that are panicking or they're misreading things about what is going on the ice. And I don't have the Twitter name up, but I know there's this one guy out there who's just like, Dave Hackstall needs to be fired. He's terrible and blah, blah, blah. And he was the wrong guy in the frame. Like, this guy is freaking out. And it's like, listen, man, they're 15 games into a season. Then they didn't even exist in June. They're learning each other. Be a little bit on the patient side. I mean, it's frustrating for sure, but you can't expect every expansion team to come out like the Vegas Golden Knights. You just can't. That was an improbable thing. It was a 1 in 100 chance and a 1,000 chance they would come out and be that good from the get-go.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see some reactionaries, or people overreacting in any fan base. I think you're always going to be there's going to be that fire the coach guy on Twitter, no matter where you are. But yeah, it's been kind of a range of responses that we've seen. But yeah, certainly the last few games, it's gotten very negative from what we've seen. And on the one hand, yes, Vegas is a completely unrealistic expectation. To go to the Cup final in the first season, I mean, that's just something I don't think we'll ever see replicated again, and that shouldn't be what the expectation is. At the same time, I don't think really anyone, even in the Kraken's front office, expected a sub 300 team, through 16 games. Where, yes, being at the top of the standings is unrealistic, but I do think they're also kind of failing to meet the expectations that they had set for themselves as well. And part of that is, they're an expansion team. They're getting to know each other, but, patience is key with that. Although I will say that Hackstall did say the other day, I think it was after the Anaheim game. It was either Anaheim or the Minnesota game, where he was asked a question about, well, guys are still getting to know each other. How long does that take? He just, no, we know each other. It's been long enough. We know each other. We don't have that excuse anymore. So I do think that does play into it.
Yeah, I don't buy that as much. I mean, it's a group of guys. Sure, you know each other now, but you haven't played together for more than 15 games. Like, you're basically a brand new team. Everybody came from another team. It's going to take a little more than 15 games for you to really get your bearings out here. So, and which is fine. It's completely fine. It should be accepted by the fans. Like, let's just have fun. There's so many things about this team that can be used and people can enjoy, like Brandon Tanev.
Oh, for sure.
I enjoy Brandon Tanev. Like, usually those goofy guys out there that throw their bodies around and take dumb penalties sometimes, usually that'll drive me nuts. But I like Brandon Tanev. He scored goals. He's been useful. Like, I think Brandon Tanev's a fun player. Like, I know he didn't originate his headshot in Seattle, but he continuing to do it is funny. Like, I think it's entertaining. It's something for the fans to have. I mean, I could understand people going out and getting a Tanev jersey,
For sure. And it plays great with the fans. And I went to the store at the Kraken Community Iceplex the other day, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a Tanev jersey in stock. They're always sold out, and there was only one left. So every time they're just sold out. Like, the fans love Brandon Tanev. And you mentioned kind of guys who run around and hit and take dumb penalties. Tanev doesn't even, he's smart about it too. I can't think of a single dumb, unwise penalty he's taken all season. So
he actually really has been really good. Yeah, for sure. In square on, that was great. That's what I want to see. I want to build that fan base up. I want to see a nice, strong fan base. I like to see the energy that I've seen or heard in the arena during the games. Like, the other part that I hope is that this kind of losing and bad results doesn't bleed over into the fans, and they lose a little enthusiasm as the season goes on. Because I like they came in all enthusiastic, just kind of like Vegas did. They wanted to be loud, and they wanted to, be one of those arenas where teams come in and say, "Wow, when we always go to to visit the crowd, always really loud. They're really loud. Every the stuff's happening." Not to the show that Vegas does, but I like to see this. I just hope that they can figure out what they're doing, and the fans don't lose their enthusiasm in that time.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly what we're hoping for. And certainly, like with the post-game show, you really get a sense of how people are feeling right after the game, and, whether they're demoralized, whether they're excited, what the mood is. But I think Seattle fans are, they're resilient. They're kind of used, unfortunately, they're used to having some disappointments that they got to bounce back from. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the Chicago game where, it's 3-0, just things haven't gone their way. And you could tell the fans still wanted something to cheer for. And as that comeback started to happen, it got very, very loud. I mean, even, when it was 3-1, that breakout pass from Philip Grubauer, just to get a quick transition in the other zone, even something like that, it got super loud because they sensed a chance coming. Like, all right, this is the time. This is when we get back into it. So I certainly don't think they've lost hope yet.
Good. Oh, that's good. And I hope it continues that way. Again, like, if they have a bad season and you're getting 60 games into the season, the playoffs aren't in the mix and they're having a hard time scoring goals, like I'm hoping that the arena doesn't start getting quiet. So, I mean, I know Seattle is a fan haven for other sports. So I'm hoping that continues with the Kraken. I'm very optimistic too. I'm just cautiously optimistic because I want them to succeed. I want them to be that. Even if even if I wasn't covering them, I'm a fan, and I want to see that the team that I'm a fan of now be that upper echelon fan base. So. Mm-hmm. So we kind of talked about what happened with the Blackhawks yesterday. Blackhawks went up 3-0. They a couple bad chances that the Kraken gave up just kind of ended up in the back of their net. And but they came back at the end. Like I said, Hackstall pulled the goalie. They got the late power play goal. Power play is good. It's finally coming around a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to say it's fixed. I wrote about this earlier about how there were two things that were really killing the Kraken, and we're going to talk about the major thing a little later on. But one of them was the power play, and they were just not scoring power play goals at all. They were going 0 for just about every single game. Now they've gone 2 games in a row with power play goals, and that's something to build on, something to look forward to. Hopefully they can continue that. But that being said, if you look at the personnel they have on the power play, or just overall, they don't have those top echelon type snipers. And I mentioned this in my article when I was saying, hey, I basically asked, well, maybe should they have taken a chance on Vladimir Tarasenko instead of Vince Dunn? And I'm a big Vince Dunn fan. So I say, Vince Dunn is younger. He's got experience. I think eventually he's still working up to be a good, offensive defenseman that can run a power play. But that being said, they don't have a trigger man on the power play, really. They've got some guys they can put in the spot that can kind of look like it. It looks like they're dressed up for it, but they don't have a trigger man like Tarasenko that could send lasers in there like that. So, it may or may not continue. And if it doesn't, they may have to look into trying to find someone trying to dump a sniper to bring in so that they can have that for the power play.
Yeah, that is certainly an area that they've been missing on the power play. And I think it's been more pronounced when Jared McCann has been out. I think his return has helped the power play's resurgence quite a bit because he is someone who's definitely willing to shoot and be that trigger man. And I think he does have the shot, that can be good enough, in the right spots. I think they tried to get Morgan Geekie kind of in that spot on the left side boards, but it just hadn't been working enough consistently. There was a good power play goal. Actually, it was just after a power play, that he scored, where it was basically power play influenced on that one timer kind of from a bad angle. I think they've wanted to set him up on the left side, but it just hasn't worked consistently. I think another thing that has helped though is getting Marcus Johansson back and his work in front of the net, because they also didn't have a guy who was, naturally in that spot. And Johansson feels very comfortable there. I mean, he was asked about it a couple of days ago and he's like, yeah, that's where I played on the power play my whole career. I'm super comfortable there. So I think that's helped kind of add another layer up to the power play and being more dynamic, because if you look at how the power play was when it was in that slump, like predictable is the word that would describe it. They only had one look they were going for and it was easy to take away. So now they've got a little bit more varied looks and that's helped them.
Yeah, those one-dimensional power plays. I mean, teams pick that up. They have video coaches for a reason. Like they're going to pick that up and they're going to know what to do with that really quick. So I want to say a shout out to my boy Mark McCulloch, who I used to play hockey with on the Chicago Syndicate roller hockey team. He was making fun of my background, saying I was in a basement. This is a pirate ship, guys. Look at Kraken pirate ship, the Kraken crew. Come on. Anyway, so we kind of talked about some of their underlying numbers, and I pulled a bunch of underlying numbers just to kind of see where they sit, because we're 15, 16 games into the season. What is it? Yeah, 17 games into the season. And, you know, this is, you're going to start to see what this team is. You usually get around the 20 game mark. You start to see really what the team, 20 to 25 game mark, what you're going to get for the rest of the season. Now, of course, you can't predict everything, but you also can't jump off a cliff after 5 games if they don't win those first 5 games. Once they get, to that 25 game mark, you kind of know where they're going to be unless something crazy happens. So we're 17 games into the season, and let me just give you some of these numbers, and you rattled actually some of them off as well. Their expected goals for, they're at 53%, which is 7th in the league. Their total shots, which is Corsi, total shot attempts, they're at 52.5%, which is 7th in the league. They're in the top third for all this stuff. 8th in unblocked shots, which is commonly called Fedwick. Third in high danger chances for. 14th in shooting percentage, which is not horrible. You would think a team who's having a hard time scoring goals would be in the bottom third. They're right in the middle of the pack, so they're not horrible. They're not great. They're not horrible as far as shooting percentage go. And their shots for, they're 52% over their opponents, which is 9th in the league. And then scoring chances, they're at the 53% range compared to their opponents. So all these possession numbers tell me they're out shooting their opponents most of the time. Most nights they're out shooting their opponents. They're getting more chances than their opponents, and which is what every team should strive to do. You want to have possession. You want to have more shots than the other team. That's going to give you your most chances. Now we could debate whether it's just shots or quality shots. But that's a debate for maybe another day. But at least they're doing a lot of the right things for a team that doesn't have a lot of top end talent. They have kind of like juicy middle six talent. Some of them are kind of maybe possibly out playing a little bit above their head. But I think as far as all that offensive stuff goes, and even like their defensemen, I brought up this morning. If you go on a natural stat trick, the Kraken defensive pairs. They had like 3 defensive pairs that were like in the top 20 of all defensive pairs, which is there's 300 or something of them. There were 3 of them in the top 20 as far as possession numbers go with defensive pairs. So that's where I saw today on the internet, people like, oh, it's their defense. Their defense is giving up too many breakaways. Their defense is giving up too many wide open chances in close. They're really not. Their high danger chances that they've given up, they're in the top 5 of the league, 6 in the league, in the least amount of shots giving up in that high danger area in 5-on-5. But
well, you look at what's you kind of listed off all these stats. What's missing there? Like what's the last key? It's goaltending, right?
Excellent transition. That's where I was going with this.
Yep. And when all those other numbers look good, but the record is as bad as it is, well, what's the one thing we haven't covered? It's goaltending. And you look at any of the goaltending numbers, whether it's the very simplistic save percentage, goals against average, or goals saved above expected, the more complicated goalie stats that do take shot quality into account. You look at the Kraken's goaltending, and it's bottom of the league, and which can be baffling given that they've paid a lot of money for what was supposed to be a top of the line goalie tandem. And really, it hasn't even been a tandem so far. You've really just had Philip Grubauer playing, starting 13 out of the 16 games. It's been pretty much him. And you look at his numbers, and they are just so far off from just about everything else he's done in his career. And I think that's the number one thing that has to turn around before the team can kind of look more like those other numbers you talked about would indicate that they should be.
Well, he did struggle when he went from Washington to Colorado starting off. He kind of struggled a little bit. They had to go out and he had injury problems too, but he did struggle a bit. But he was supposed to be he was a Vezina nominee last year. And it's really weird that he was a Vezina nominee and so was Marc-Andre Fleury. And look at the way those two played in probably the first dozen games of the season. Now Fleury's finally come on, and I'm kind of hoping we see that from Grubauer, but Fleury won the Vezina last year, and he was the worst statistical goalie in the entire NHL. for the first dozen games of the season.
Yeah, and that's the nature of goaltending, though. I mean, it's not like it's a rarity. You actually kind of see that fairly often. You look at last season with Sergei Bobrovsky moving systems from Columbus to Florida, and he struggled. He struggled quite a bit. I mean, he was beat out in the goalie battle by Chris Driedger and even Spencer Knight at the end there. And so much of it can be mental also for these goalies, moving from one system to another. And Grubauer strikes me as one of those goalies where the mental side of it is very important for him. And he's such a smart goalie too. He communicates a lot with his defensemen. You can tell that systems are very important to him. He's good at like talking to the defenseman, moving the puck up the ice, that sort of thing, which takes an adjustment when you have all new defensemen that you're working with. So I think maybe you could chalk a little bit up to that. But, I think beyond that, too, there are just certain saves that need to be made. And I think, even like Hackstall, kind of admitted it. You never want to really, say anything too negative about your goalie. But, after last game, he said, I think here's the quote, we gave one up that, I'd like to see us get a save on. We need to save somewhere in there along the way. So I think it's kind of at that point where it's like, well, I know there's an adjustment, but at a certain point, you just got to make a save.
Yeah, exactly. So, we talked about stats a little bit, and I keep bringing this up, and it's like, and I keep bringing it up in my recaps this too. It's like a broken record. Goaltending. They're getting goalied several times, during the first 17 games where, like Marc-Andre Fleury yesterday just went out of his mind for a game, and they've had that happen a couple times. They have not goalied anybody really. But as far as the stats go, like their high danger save percentage, so everything right in the house, right in the middle of the ice, probably up to the top of the circles, middle of the ice between the face-off dots, any chances in there, which include breakaways and all that stuff that I was talking about on the internet today. It actually went down to 72%. That save percentage, that high danger save percentage. They save, under 3 out of 4 shots in those high danger areas, which is terrible. It's about 3 points lower than any other team in the league, which is a lot. That is a huge gap. And then you have, what else we have here? We have 32nd scoring chance, save percentage, 79%, 32nd in the league in team save percentage, which is pretty much 5-on-5 at 86%. 86% is a horrible team save percentage. Fifth in best high danger chances faced, which I said kind of earlier. Second worst in high danger goals against. Right there, that disparity right there, that tells you where the goals are coming from. That tells you they're scoring a lot of goals in close on your goalie. The goalie needs to make these saves. Now, they brought in an extra goalie. Driedger was supposed to be the guy. They brought in another goalie, figuring, that we're going to have the greatest, tandem in the league. They brought in guys who are supposed to be able to make those in tight saves. If they make those in tight saves, they could easily 10-4-1 at this point, just because of the way their goalies have. And there was one stat that I saw today that just, I saw it and my jaw dropped, because I'm a goalie, man. I study goalies. I know goalies. I know how goalies think and everything like that. I'm a goalie nerd. This is the one stat that I looked up today that was just appalling. They're 17 games into the season, right? Philip Grubauer is 79th in the league. There are 79 goalies that have played in the NHL this year. He is 79th with a negative 12.05 goals saved above average. So he's basically given up 12 more goals than an average goalie in the NHL right now. And Driedger is better, but Grubauer actually dropped like 2 full percentage points since the last time I podcasted, which was about 3 weeks ago. So, I mean, that is terrible. And then Driedger's 59th, but he's only played in a couple of games. He's at negative 2.41 or 2.14, which is still not great. It's just like the goalies have to make the saves that, the easy saves. They have to make the easy saves, and you have to make some that aren't easy. And that's how a goalie wins in the NHL. That's how a team's successful. The goalies aren't even making the saves that they have to make, or they should make, the routine saves. And then they're certainly not making the hard saves either, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that just flat out needs to improve. I mean, you hear us talking about it, we're just kind of, kind of exasperated. It's just like, yeah, it just needs to change. And, and I think the goalies know that, Grubauer knows that. It's just a matter of getting it to happen. And there's not a whole lot, I'm not a goalie coach. I can't tell you all the things technically, that he needs to do better, but it's just one of those where it needs to get better. But thankfully, his history over a big sample size of games, for Grubauer shows that he's a better goalie than this, a much better goalie than this. So, that at least gives some hope that, this isn't who he is. Grubauer's not an 880 save percentage goalie.
No, he is not.
So, there's a lot of hope that it'll get back to more what we know he can be.
Right. Yeah. I know you kind of, I think you mentioned the Rink goal, didn't you?
Yes.
A little earlier. Yeah. I mean, that's one, he's got to have that. As a goalie, the first thing that I look at is he's not being aggressive enough. The defenseman has cut off the middle of the ice. The forward only has one place to go, to the outside and try to get a shot through you. If he steps out and takes one or two or a step and a half out and just cuts down that angle, that's nothing. That's a nothing. It hits him in the shoulder, or The-Rink shoots it up over the net, or it hits him in the chest or something like that. But he was too far back in his net, and The-Rink sniped him on it. It's as simple as that. He's not being aggressive enough, in my opinion. He's not being aggressive enough, and they're going to have to do something to work on that, getting his aggressiveness a little bit better, because it's just the way this team is. The team's going to give up a couple of high danger chances or some breakaways or something like that now and then. But I thought the defense actually played that pretty well. If I was a goalie, that's how I want my defender to play the guy. Try to keep him, push him to the outside, get him to a bad angle where he can't get a clean look at the net. And that's what happened. And Grubauer just got eaten up on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Oleksiak played it well enough. I have longer spiel I could go about it completely, like maybe use your size a little bit. I would have liked to see him just kind of use that physicality a little more. He reached out with the stick, and he kept him to the outside well enough that you want your goalie to have that. But when you're Oleksiak on, a smaller guy like DeBrincat, use your size a little bit more, kind of.
I mean, he's damn near got a foot on him, and he's definitely got a lot of pounds. He's probably got 60 pounds and a good foot on DeBrincat. And the crazy thing is, it's like he plays against DeBrincat a lot. He played in Dallas against DeBrincat in Chicago. You see him 6+ times a year. Like, DeBrincat, this kid. Like, you could body him. DeBrincat's a small, I have my own opinions of Alex DeBrincat, and it's been well known in the Chicago fandom about, how I feel about Alex DeBrincat. But when you got a guy who's got 60 pounds on you and a foot, he should be able to push you out. And no matter how strong DeBrincat is on the puck, a guy that big should have been able to. I was actually astounded that he didn't try to crush him, but maybe felt DeBrincat was going to slide off of him and get around him, and that's fair. But still, Grubauer has to be more aggressive. You have to know that your defense is cut off that angle.
Yeah, he did. Oleksiak did good enough that you'd certainly want your goalie to have.
For sure. He wasn't 3 feet behind him. He was still keeping up with him, and he pushed him to the outside. I even tell I have my son playing, filling in goalie right now, and this same thing I tell him. You want your defenseman to push that guy to the outside. That's what you want, and that's what he was trying to do. I mean, he was starting to push him wide, and DeBrincat got to a point where he couldn't do anything else but shoot from there, or he was just going to go behind the net. So, yeah, crazy.
Yep.
Anyway, the thing that I really find unusual, and I'm not like, I don't hate Dave Hackstall. I don't love Dave Hackstall. Like, when they named him coach, I was like, okay, I guess. Like, I could have thought of some other guys that I would have preferred them to get, but whatever. I mean, he is a guy. He's worked with a lot of young people when he worked at North Dakota, and so you're going to have to bring a lot of young people through this organization. So okay, it is what it is. But why not play? I mean, I understand when Drieger was hurt. Like, you don't want to throw Joey Daccord to the Wolves. You want to protect him a little bit. But Chris Drieger was supposed to be your starter. Like, if he's available and your starter isn't playing that well, now granted, Drieger, his numbers aren't that well, but he's only played a couple of games. Give Drieger a couple of games. Let Grubauer, work on some mechanics, look at some film, get out of his head instead of going out there and giving up bad goal after bad goal after bad goal, and your team then losing. Like, give Drieger a couple of games. What would it hurt?
Yeah, I mean, if he's healthy, I just don't see why they're not doing that. It's certainly been a head scratcher. There have been a few times in morning skate where we all just kind of assume that Drieger's getting the start that night, and then we, hear Haxtell say it's going to be Grubauer, and yeah, I just think at a certain point you have this tandem. It was always designed to be a tandem. Yes, I know injuries kind of get in the way and the plans change, but you can have the tandem again, and I just certainly don't think that Grubauer has done enough to show that he should be getting every start now, even if Drieger's healthy, which wasn't originally the plan. Like the only way that should happen is if Grubauer's just playing so well that you have no choice but to start him because he's doing so well, but that's certainly not the case. Yeah, I'm hoping we see Drieger against Colorado. Yeah, and he's only played 88 minutes this season. I mean, that's nothing as far as you look at his numbers, it's nothing as far as the sample size. We really haven't seen what he can do for the Kraken yet, So I hope we see some more starts from him and just really get an idea of what he can do.
Figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I was not a fan of what he did in the preseason, Drieger. He didn't play well at all. He looked bad, but so did Grubauer actually. But it's like you have to try something. Your only other alternative at this time is going to be Joey Decord or acquiring another goaltender. You're not acquiring another goaltender. You can't. With the way they have their salary structure with goaltending goes, you're paying like $10 million or whatever you're paying for two goalies. You can't add another goalie into there and then you have to send send Drieger down or something like that. He'll never make it through waivers. So it's you're not going to acquire a new goalie. So you got to work this out, or you got to, you're not going to bring Joey Decord up either. Like you got to work it out between these two guys.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you guys just have to figure it out, and that's. I guess one of the things that's been frustrating is it really hasn't been two guys. It's just been one guy. I mean, like I said, Drieger's played 88 minutes. That's not really enough even to say that he's been part of a tandem. Decord's played more than he has.
Yeah.
So yeah,
part of that was injury, but yeah, yes, to your point,
but at the end of
totally
the day,
valid.
Yeah. So you really haven't, I think, seen enough from him yet to say like, well, both guys are doing bad. One guy hasn't really gotten enough of a shot. So, at least give him the chance. I think, right now that's certainly one of the first changes I would make.
Yeah, I mean, if you're losing anyway, what does it hurt? They've lost 5 in a row. What does it hurt to throw the other guy in there and see if you can't mix things up a little bit? I mean, they've been going through the line blender, which is what we affectionately called it here in Chicago when Quenneville was here, the line blender, where they would just blend up lines. They blended up a lot of pairs and lines and stuff like that. But I mean, honestly, it's not the forwards and it's not the defense that are really the problem here. The power play's coming around a little bit. Everything but the goaltending. It's the goaltending. And I hate to blame goalies. I hate blaming goaltenders because I feel like, they can only do so much with what they're given. But at a certain point, you're a pro goaltender who is better, is slightly better than average or maybe better than average goaltenders, both of them. Like you have to play better than this sub replacement level statistics that they're putting out there. They need to make saves. They need to make the saves that they're supposed to make, and they need to make some more that they're not supposed to make. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what Fleury did in the last game. That's what a good goalie can do for you.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, like Jeff Merrick, if you listen to Jeff Merrick, like he talks about that, a good goalie can make or break a coach. He can make a coach look great. Last year when the Chicago Blackhawks were seemingly hot and Jeremy Colleton was supposedly a good coach, it was because they're Kevin Lincoln was throwing up a .930 save percentage for the first quarter of the season. Well, yeah, if you have a goalie that's .930 for a first quarter of the season, you're going to have success. Now, on the opposite end, if you've got two goalies that are in the 80% range, or 83%, 83 and 87% range, you're gonna lose a lot of games, and it's gonna make a coach look bad.
Yep,
it's just the goalie voodoo. It's how the goalie voodoo works. It's the pendulum of good and bad between goalies. It's crazy, but they're gonna have to do something. Something's gonna have to change, and you can't just keep throwing them out there to sink. Like without a life vest, like you just can't. You got to do something about that. That's if there's a criticism that I have of Hackstall, that's it. It's you have to know when to pull the plug a little bit and let a guy sit for a little bit. If he's not playing well, you're losing ground, man. You're not gaining anything here. So So, I mean, that was kind of the big thing is the goaltending. There were a couple other things that I kind of noticed when I was kind of checking out some stats, and there's guys in that creamy middle, like I keep mentioning, those middle six type forwards. They're supposed to be good, solid forwards, supposed to be able to provide something for this team, and two of them are now 17 games into the season, and they're scoreless. They have no goals, and that's Kelly Yarncroc and Jonas Donskoy. Those two players were going to be counted on to be that secondary scoring. Like Donskoy, he's got a shot, man. He can shoot. He needs to start putting the puck in the net. And Kelly Yarncroc is kind of more of like a Matthias Janmark was in Chicago or in Vegas or when he was in Dallas. He's kind of a two-way guy, but can throw the puck in the net. He could be a good third-line forward that can give you a goal when you need it, but he could be thrown out there, against the other team's best lines and stuff like that. But he hasn't done anything. Both of these guys have no goals this year in these games, and really, if they were to score on top of people like Jordan Eberle having is starting to have a really nice season, and the unexpected Brandon Tanev and some of those guys like McCann, Wenberg. I'd like to see some more goals out of Wenberg as well. I like Wenberg. In theory, I like Wenberg, but I know he's more of a kind of a setup guy. But I'd like to see a couple more goals out of him too. Some of these guys, they could maybe jumpstart some things by jumping into the scoring. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of an expansion team, really. And that's why Vegas did so well, is you had all those guys who you figure, well, maybe they hop in and contribute, 10, 20 goals, that we've known that they're able to do. And for Vegas, it happened for like everyone. Everyone, it's, was scoring, those depth guys that, can contribute a little bit. And in Seattle, it just hasn't really happened with everyone. Tanev's done his piece. But yeah, I mean, Donskoy and Yarncroc specifically, as you were, introing that before you said the names, I knew exactly who you were going to bring up. Because, yeah, like in Donskoy's case, he's still produced a decent amount offensively. He has a lot of assists. He's kind of been a good playmaker. You would like to see him put more pucks in the net. But he's still, on some nights is doing his thing offensively, but yeah, just can't seem to get one to go home for him. Yarncroc, I haven't really seen produce much offensively at all. He's still, solid in his own zone, in the neutral zone, as always. You're going to get that from him. And I think the Kraken have kind of realized, just what he's going to bring, and they've stopped counting on that. They put him on more of a shutdown line, with Yanni Gourde, at times in the season, which, has helped if you need to shut down a big line. Like Yarncroc was really good against the Minnesota Wild, like 2 Wild games ago against the Kaprizov line. Like, I like to see him in a spot like that. But yeah, I mean, those are just guys you need contributions from. I mean, Yarncroc had a run on the power play, wasn't really able to contribute anything there. Yeah, you just like to see the puck start to go in for him. I have more hope for Donskoy than for Yarncroc in that area, because I think I still see Donskoy doing the right things a lot of the time. And it's just a matter of being unlucky for him, I think. But we know Donskoy is a guy that sometimes he can get really, really hot. Sometimes he can get really, really cold scoring wise. That's kind of been the case his whole career. I followed the Sharks very closely for a while, and that was certainly the story in San Jose. So that's just kind of, what it is with him.
Right. Well, also just recently, coming into the lineup, they finally, like a lot of the injured players started, finally getting healthy again. And Colin Blackwell actually finally made it into a couple of games. I don't know what to think of him because I'm not a Rangers fan, and so I didn't see a lot of him. I've only seen what has come through my Twitter feed and stuff like that about the guy. I don't know. I'm not sure what I think of him yet. What is your opinion on Colin Blackwell?
I like Colin Blackwell, and he's someone that I actually did watch a fair amount doing scouting for our projected Kraken roster before the expansion draft. So we're kind of looking at different targets the Kraken might have, and he's someone we kind of zeroed in on from the Rangers as one of those obvious guys that might stand out as the pick. So I really like what I've seen from him. This season he's only had a couple games, but looking back to his play with the Rangers, it seemed like he kind of just figured some things out as far as, what he can bring to a team. He can play anywhere up and down the lineup. He was playing on their first line. He was, playing all the way down to their fourth line. He was on the second power play unit. That's an area I want to see him in eventually. Haxel doesn't have any immediate plans to put him there, but I want to see him there in the bumper spot at some point because he was fantastic there for the Rangers. But he kind of brings a little bit of the intensity that Tanev gives you, which is why I like the two of them on a line together.
Okay.
and he's got sneaky good puck skills. I mean, he can score. He almost scored about 3 seconds into his first shift, of his first game back. I think the puck may have hit the post or something, but right from the get-go. So yeah, I think he's still shaking some of the rust off. But once he does, I think he could be a really valuable piece.
Oh man, he made a terrible pass yesterday. That backhand pass in his own zone. I wanted to wring his neck. On that one, I'm like, as a goal, I'd be screaming, "No! What are you doing?"
That's the rust I'm talking about. I think, and it's tough, missing because he didn't get a training camp. He missed the entirety of training camp, so he's just kind of coming back now, and that's tough, especially when no one's played together before. When you don't even get that training camp to kind of mesh with the teammates and know where guys are going to be. So I think there's still some rust to shake off.
Let me get your opinions on, let you talk about a little bit, because I think people know my opinions on some of these guys. I'm a big Vince Dunn fan. He hasn't really produced just yet, but I think the potential there with Vince Dunn is really good. He's young. He's got a ton of experience. He's got a Stanley Cup. I was a big fan of the defensive core of the St. Louis Blues, which is funny to say coming from a former Blackhawks fan, because the Blues were their arch nemesis. But Colton Parayko, Joel Edmondson, Vince Dunn, I mean, they had a ton of really good young defensemen on that core. And I'm kind of a fan of Vince Dunn. I've watched him when he went over to Carolina, and now I was kind of glad that the Kraken picked him up. What are your opinions on Vince Dunn?
Yeah, I like him, and certainly earlier in the season, it was clear to see, his creativity, the way he would jump into the play. Just it was an element that the Kraken didn't really have on their blue line. It's mostly guys who are bigger, who are more physical, more defensively oriented. You've got the Alexiaks, the Soucy, the Larsons, those type of guys, and Dunn just provided an element that they really needed. I've been a little disappointed to see how little he's been utilized this season. I mean, his ice time has been lower than I would have thought. I mean, it's been up more in recent games. Actually, in the Chicago game, he played 24 minutes. It was 24-24 is how much ice time he had, which was a career high, by the way, for a single game for him. So I was happy to at least see that. I want to see him given a little bit more of a role, especially on the power play. I mean, they've kind of gone with Giordano, and at that quarterback spot for the top unit. And I just think that Dunn provides a little bit more there, like just more of a dynamic kind of guy.
I mean, that's his job. I mean, that's what he's always been good at. Why not use it? I don't, I'm kind of, I like Mark Giordano, but maybe they're kind of miscasting him a little bit in some respects.
It's tough to step back in because they've kind of given him a similar role. He was playing a lot of minutes with Calgary last season. He was doing just as much as he ever was, and it's tough. He's 38 now. It's tough to just kind of keep that going as influential of a role as he's had. When maybe you're getting a little bit older, and maybe I don't know, maybe he's dealing with an injury. You never know. But he looks kind of like a guy who's maybe trying to do some of the things that he used to be able to do pretty reliably. And for one reason or another, he's just not able to do anymore.
Yeah. I mean, a lot like Duncan Keith was here in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's, I think also too, he was playing in front of teams that maybe were a little bit, were composed a little differently than this, a bunch of grinders, bunch of guys who were third line, second, third line guys. They had a little more top end talent and stuff like that, like Johnny Gaudreau and Kachuk and stuff like that, top end first round talent guys. So I think that could have been part of it too. Later in his career, he had some of these younger guys that were also able to do things with the puck that made him look better on the back end. So. But so I mean, what are some things that you guys have noticed as far as like players go, surprises or disappointments or things like that we haven't talked about? You got any?
Yeah, I mean, Dylan's a big fan of Adam Larson. I've got to mention him, and Dylan's kind of clued me into a lot of the little things that he does that are so valuable. I mean, he's just great at tying up his guy in front. He's been paired with Jeremy Lauzon a lot of the time, so you've kind of seen that D pair have a lot of breakdowns, but they're usually on Lauzon's end, where he kind of overcommits somewhere. But
I am not a Lauzon fan. I just want to say, I've mentioned it before. From what I've seen out of Lauzon, I'm not a huge fan of him. But
yeah, I like certain elements of his game, but man, just the breakdowns, that's just got to be fixed. He'll just kind of overcommit one direction or just lose his man in front. But that's something you never see from Adam Larson. He's just so solid defensively. And so on a team that really could use more of that too, he just so rarely makes a mistake. So that's just a good steady presence. So I like what I've seen from him. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Also, Jared McCann. I mean, it's tough because he's scoring so much, so he's not really an unsung kind of guy or a surprise. And Dylan and I liked him when when he was the pick there from Toronto. We were hoping they were going with Kerfoot, like that fish toss leak would lead us to suggest. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's been great. He's been driving a lot of the offense on a team that sorely needed it. So those have been kind of the two guys that I'd point out, one on offense, one on defense that we really like.
Adam Larson gets kind of lost out there, but
he does.
He actually really is a good defensive type defenseman, like in the mold of maybe you would remember like a Nicholas Hjalmarsson kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm a big Hjalmarsson fan. Yeah,
and I love Nicholas Hjalmarsson as a goalie. I love those kind of players, and of course him being here in Chicago, I love Nick Hjalmarsson. It was hard on him early in his career because when he was young, he would get beat up. They would send forwards in there and just beat him up into corners really bad. But he learned to be able to get away from that, and turned out to be one of the best defensive players of the generation. He's just, I can't say enough good things about the guy. But Adam Larson has a lot of those same things as well that you're not going to see on a score sheet. But when you're someone you got a trained hockey eye, you're going to see those things that he does that shuts down other teams' top players and keeps other teams' top players from really, scoring a lot of goals against your goalie. Because right now, I mean, you can't even afford just a slip up here or there. So, yeah. He often gets forgotten about because he doesn't show up on the score sheet. So it's good that, and like even Alexiak too, you don't hear a lot about him.
Yeah, he's another guy, similar things.
Yeah, I've watched, I was a big fan of Alexiak when he was in Dallas, watching him all the time. Big dude that can move and has a big shot, and he's physical. Maybe not physical enough like we talked about earlier, but he can be physical. He was a good player. Like I thought, maybe like an Alexiak kind of Larson pair would be like a killer shutdown pair, but I don't know if that's really, come out to be anything. I have seen like Larson paired with Dunn has been really good.
I do like that pair. We saw that pair last game.
Yeah.
I am a fan of that pair.
Yeah, that's I said they were in the top. I think they were 7th best out of all defensive pairs as far as their shot attempt percentages.
I mean, they've got everything you could want. Dunn's offensive creativity, his puck moving ability, and then Larson, defensively. It's just it's a perfectly well-rounded D pair.
Yeah, and even Fleury has not been horrible. He's been okay. He's been in and out of the lineup a little bit, but when he's played, he's been okay. His numbers show that he's all right. So.
Yeah, he had a rough game last game, but overall, I mean, he's one of those players that I'm just really hoping it works out for him, because I do like what he brings to the blue line when he's on, when he's going, especially those couple games where he was just shooting the puck at every opportunity, getting 5-6 shots on goal, in the game. I mean, that really added something different to the Kraken's offensive looks. And I liked when he was paired with actually it was Fleury and Dunn. I mean, Dunn just, he makes these guys look better, but Fleury talked about, in one of the interviews, just said, I like playing with Dunn because he takes some of the attention off of me. Everyone's looking at him. What's he going to do offensively? What's he going to do? And he can just feed the puck right over to Fleury, and he's got a lot of shooting opportunities. So,
right.
Different ways you can use Vince Dunn there.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, the schedule coming up, they're gonna finish we're gonna wrap up here, but they're gonna wrap up their homestand, which is a nice big long homestand, but they have not been all that successful on it. In fact, they've been horrible on it thus far. They're 0-3. They got to play Colorado, who's a really good team, on Friday, which is tomorrow. On Sunday, they got to welcome Washington, who's playing very well. And then they have Carolina, who has also been playing very well. So they're playing. They went from playing against teams like the Wild and Anaheim and Chicago, who have struggled at times. The Wild have been okay, but they struggled too at times. And Chicago's definitely struggled up until the last 3 games. They went from winning or losing against teams that they probably should compete a little better against to now they're going to be playing against some teams that are in the top tier of the NHL right now, as far as, offense and their records. So this is really, this could end up being a disaster, and this could tank their season right into the Sound with, losing 3, going 0-6 on their homestand. their first long homestand. And then they got to go to Tampa Bay on the road. Then they got to go to Florida on the road. And they may get a break in Buffalo. But for at least the next week and a half almost, they've got some really tough teams to play. What do you think about that?
I mean, it is a tough stretch. It's certainly not getting any easier. And that's why you want to bank the points against the Arizonas, the Chicagos. You want to bank those points so that you can afford to have some margin for error against these really good teams that they're going to be playing. I guess one point for optimism, though, is, you look at all those advanced numbers that you read out earlier and where they place in the league, usually in the top 10. I mean, that shows that aside from the goaltending and some of the defensive breakdowns, they can hang with these teams. They're in that conversation. I mean, you look at how these other teams rank. So I guess that provides a little bit of, reason for optimism. If they can just get the saves, there's reason to believe that they can hang in there with these teams.
I'm really hoping that they start to show a little better, because they're becoming a kind of a punchline. And I don't want them to become a punchline. Like, I don't want everyone to feel sorry for the Kraken because they stink and they're the little brothers that are trying to punch up and stuff. I actually want to see them compete and at least, compete for a playoff spot. If you don't make it, you don't make it. That's fine. It's your first year. But, I'd like to see them compete a little better. I'd like to see them get some goaltending. I want the fans to have something to be happy about. I want to enjoy the fans being happy. I want this to be a happy environment. This is one of the reasons why I'm not covering the Blackhawks. It was not a happy environment. There's nothing about it that was happy. The team stunk. The management stunk. The fan base stunk. The media stunk. And then, as we found out just recently, the entire front office, going back to 2010, stunk too. So everything about it stunk. I like this fresh new thing the fresh new little toy that I have to play with. I want to see him be successful. I want to enjoy it with him. So, that's kind of how I feel with this. So I'm really hopeful. I don't know what we're going to see, but I'm really hopeful that, they at least are in these games and maybe they surprise one or two of these teams. If they can win 2 out of 3 against the next 3 opponents, that would be great. Going on the floor, going into Florida, if they could at least go 500, beat one of those teams. It's going to be hard, but hockey's hard. So let's baby steps. You don't have to win every single game, but you're going to have to start winning more games, and more. You're going to have to start winning more than you lose. That's the way it's going to have to go if they want to continue to compete and possibly get a playoff spot.
Yep, for sure.
So cool. Well, let's we're rolling in on an hour here. I can't believe it, but we'll kind of wrap things up a little bit. So I want to thank you, RJ. Too bad Dylan, I'm sorry we couldn't have him on as well, but I'd like to, definitely have you guys on again. You guys know your hockey, which I love. It's nice to be able to have people that, that know their hockey, can read their stats, can understand the stats, and are realistic about the team as well. So I really enjoy having you on, and I hope we can have Dylan on as well sometime.
Hey, right back at you. Thank you so much for having me on. We'll definitely get Dylan on here at some point in the future.
For sure.
But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate.
And that's another thing. I'm reaching out to the other fan sites and stuff like that, because back here in Chicago, things got really toxic as far as the Twitterverse and all that other stuff between the Chicago. It almost became like a war between all the warring factions, and I don't want to be that way. I don't want to fight with people. I want everyone to be a big happy family kind of thing. We all go out there and visit. We can all hang out, all go to the bar, all whatever, hang out and have a good time, laugh and make new friends and stuff like that. So I want to connect people. I want everyone to be kind of I want to change how sometimes the internet can be like that. So I'm glad to have you on, and I'm glad I've made a new friend.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, yeah, it's really cool. So make sure you guys check these guys out. It's Emerald City Hockey. It's Emerald City HKY on Twitter. EmeraldCityHockey.com. You could read their stuff. You can read our stuff. That's fine. There's enough hockey content here for everybody, and you can consume it all from everyone. So RJ, thanks for coming on. I want to thank you that. I don't have any really big last plugs. What I do have is we've got our feature on the-rink.com called Tommy's Puckline Picks, and he's kind of taking a little bit of a break, but it's kind of like a betting odds situation. And Tom is really good at this. He's one of our Chicago writers, and he was putting out the odds every day. It's kind of slowed down a little bit for right now, but it's going to ramp right up again. So check out those Tommy's puck line picks. He's actually pretty good at it. I was telling some people, I'm like, I might have to get on to some online betting because he's been getting a lot of them right. And I'm not a betting type of guy. I don't like to throw my money away, but if he's going to be good, why not use it? So check that out. It's you can find it on the front page of our website at the-rink.com. You can find all of our comprehensive content there, all of our stuff in the Chicago division, but most importantly, all the stuff I put out there for the Seattle Kraken division. You can find us on all the popular social medias. At The Rink Official is the encapsulation of our whole site. At The Rink Chicago is our Chicago division. At The Rink Seattle is my division, which is the Seattle Kraken. There's actually at Kraken Hostel, which is this podcast's account. We have it spread out between two accounts. At the Rinkcast is the Chicago podcast. Sometimes I drop in on them, but for the most part, Andy has been doing a great job over there, Andy Campbell. And I'm just letting them do their thing, man. I don't need to step on their tails while they're doing their jobs over there. So they do a great job over there. I'm at Puck and Hostel on the interwebs. You guys have known, you know me. You've seen me yelling at people and arguing with people on the internet. So it kind of fits the Twitter account. You guys just have at Emerald City, or do you guys have individual accounts too?
We don't really use the individual accounts a whole lot. It's just
Gotcha.
at Emerald City HKY. That's where you see all the tweets.
Perfect. That's so yeah. Go check those guys out. Like you were saying before, you guys do a post game every game. I just wish I had more help to do stuff like that and be able to do that. It's hard enough to get this podcast up and recap every game on the internet and do analysis pieces. So
yeah, for sure. I can't imagine trying to do that alone. I mean, that's all Dylan. So, and come join us for a post game. It's a nice, like, friendly environment, just like what you're talking about. We're all just there chatting about the game that just happened. Really
awesome.
nice.
Maybe if you guys do, you guys do them road games too?
Yes, road games too. Every game, every single game. So
awesome. Yeah, I may be one of the earlier games since I'm in Chicago. I'm a couple hours behind you guys, or ahead of you guys. So maybe if some of these East Coast games or something like that, if time lines up, I'd love to jump on with you guys and just wrap a little bit of hockey. So if fans, if you get over, you get a chance, go over to iTunes, rate and review us. All the ratings and reviews, will help out. Will push us up the charts so more people come and listen. You can also subscribe to our YouTube page. The link is at the top of the website at the-rink.com. We don't have one of the fancy vanity names for the YouTube account just yet until we get enough subscribers. I think it's over 100 subscribers. Then we can get a vanity name. But you can find it at all the links are at the-rink.com. I think you got any last things you want to plug?
No, I think we got it all. Thanks for having me on.
Cool, of course. So with all that being said, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to download, listen, or maybe you're watching and support us. Until next episode, see you on the rink.